I hope this presentation will just bring you up to date on some studies that we are conducting in Italy, not me personally, but in general, 2 or 3 labs which are interested in GI studies. So what we already know about pasta, if you look at the scientific literature about GI or pasta, we find a common ground, which is a medium, actually a low to medium glycemic index compared to other food. Of course, there is a variability. What this variability can be accounted for, there are many factors which could affect pasta GI. For sure, the presence of the gluten matrix, which is already well established, but also some possible effect linked to the gastric emptying, to the native wholemeal or other fiber to pasta, with hardness, other proteins, cooking time, processing. So there are many, many variables which have been not assessed systematically so far. So we have difficulties now in trying to establish a solid ground to affirm that pasta is a low GI food, because we have difficulties in comparing the literature. There are different sizes of pasta which have been studied, shapes, with origin, composition, processing, cooking, enrichment, dressing, and so on, and so on, and so on. So we need a single, well-planned, comprehensive study which is focused on the process of pasta making. Why? Because we want to find out if we can bring evidence in support to the fact that pasta making per se is a technology. So it's not a composition of a food, it's a technology which, applied to a food, can reduce postprandial glycemic response of wheat flours. Of course, the derived claim is that pasta is a food with a reduced glycemic response compared to what? The comparator, cereal foods with otherwise identical composition. So the same composition, but two technologies which are different. How pasta is made, just to resume shortly the process. Starting from flour, which is normally in Italy made with durum wheat semolina, but can also be a spring wheat flour. The flour is mixed, is kneaded, and then is extruded. Extrusion can be done through different ways. Normally the two industrially must use ways are to use a bronze or a Teflon traffiler, or to roll sheet the pasta, like in the domestic preparation. Then forming of pasta, which can be in different sizes and shapes and thickness, and then to dry it, to obtain the pasta which is sold, is a dry pasta. Of course, dry can be also done with different techniques industrially, with high or low temperature. So low temperature is about 60 degrees, 70 degrees for a couple of days, and high temperature can reach 95 degrees for a very short time. This is the industrial or artisanal part of pasta making. And then we have also to account the fact that pasta is not eaten raw, so we have different way to cook it and different way to dress it. So the establishing the effect of pasta on glycemic response is quite complex, even if the food seems so easy. So this is a set of possible study variables, starting from two different kinds of flour, and then following what I show you to obtain a set of possible experimental samples that can be tested to assess the effect of every one of these passages. The first study is just made to look at starting from the semolina to go down until we reach the final product with a single kind of product, and to compare it with a reference food made with the same flour. So the design is in vitro digestibility and in vivo postprandial response of bread and pasta made with the same semolina. So starting with the same, exactly the same semolina. And then on the pasta process to look at the difference between the first step, so the trafilling pasta, and the second step, to drying it, to follow the process during the chain, along the chain. This has been done. Principal investigator is Professor Francesca Scazzina, and the support is from Barilla in Parma. So what are the methods that we used? The English method to establish the content of rapidly available glucose and rapidly digestible starch and slowly digestible starch, what we already know, and also the in vitro kinetic of digestion. So these are the data from the English study for the dry pasta, fresh pasta, bread, and semolina, the original. And we see there is some difference, but if you look exactly to the data, through the data, we have had some problem in clearly establishing differences between the bread and the original semolina. It's a bit better if you look at the kinetics of in vitro digestion, because we can find a cluster, the two pastas, either dry or fresh, are clearly lesser, digested to a lesser extent, to a lesser speed compared to bread and semolina. What about the in vivo results? The in vivo results made on 18 for each tested product. Exclusion criteria, of course, so the isonol for GI have been followed. Randomized control crossover, ethical clearance from the ethical committee of Parma. The 5 meals are semolina, bread, fresh pasta before drying, dry pasta after drying, and then a glucose to assess to control for and calculate the glycemic index. Measures and timings are according to the isonols for glucose, and then we added also insulin, C-peptide, GLP-1, GLP-1, just to explore a bit more the possible effect of this product. So these are just the preliminary study. They refer only to glucose, and they are not completed. But we can also already appreciate a certain difference, which mimic the in vitro digestion results, with dry pasta and fresh pasta, which are only slightly different. We are looking here to the incremental area under the curve, not the glycemic index. And then bread and the original semolina, which are significantly higher, with bread which is even higher than the original flour. Second study, which is ongoing also, the design is the in vitro digestibility and then in vivo postprandial response of pasta made according to the main manufacturing processing. So the first study was just to establish a link between the semolina, so the original flour, made as a bread, made as a pasta, and 2 steps in the pasta making. In this case, we want to explore all the different technological variables. So flour, hard wheat or spring wheat, extrusion, bronze or Teflon, format, short or long, drying, high temperature or low temperature, to have all these set of variables, so the final products to test. So long and short format, dried both at low and high temperature, coming from durum wheat or coming from soft wheat. We only have now the preliminary results, which are the in vitro digestions. This is the rapidly digestible starch and slowly digestible starch according to English. What you can see, this is the durum wheat semolina. Those are the different pastas made with the durum wheat semolina. There is an increase in the slowly digestible starch, even if the durum wheat semolina, even if the pasta is made with the durum wheat semolina, and a decrease in the rapidly digestible starch. So the pasta making process, there is some variables here, some differences, but in general, as an average, reduces or increases these 2 kinds of starch, which can predict the glycemic response. The same happens with the, not durum wheat semolina, but with the spring wheat flour. So even if the protein content is lower, the process of pasta making increases the slowly digestible starch and decreases the rapidly digestible starch. So this seems linked to the process. So just to conclude and to make it short, we can hypothesize and have some preliminary data that support that pasta making reduces the glycemic response of durum wheat semolina, whereas bread making does not. So the process of pasta making is able to reduce the glycemic response of durum wheat semolina. The process of bread making not. So if we want a comparator made with the same ingredient, with the same final composition, we can use bread made with semolina or pasta made with semolina, and to test the possibility to use those data to support the fact that technology can, independently from the composition of the product, reduce the glycemic response. This effect is possibly due to the extrusion process, because also the not dry pasta has a lower glycemic response compared to bread. Then the starch rate of digestion is associated to the reduced glycemic response to pasta, and it might be used as a demonstration of mechanism of action. This is an additional step that we can use. Of course, EFSA, in allowing the claim on slowly or rapidly digestible starch, used this data as an ingredient. In this case, we can use this data as an ingredient, but in my opinion, it could be better used as a mechanism of action, as a demonstration of a mechanism of action. And then variables in the process show only minor effects on in vitro digestibility. We don't know yet on in vivo the glycemic response. And this is irrespective of wheat origin and confirms also the effect of processing in reducing this rate of starch digestion and possibly the glycemic response of cereal flours. And this could be also applied to other kind of pasta, which is what the GI data on pasta, the international data, more or less demonstrate, because also rice pasta or corn pasta have a lower GI than the original flours. Okay, that's all.
Furio, is this going to be the end of the pasta made according to the Italian way?
No.
In other words,
Yeah.
all what we've been thinking about the fact that durum wheat is important, and also the cooking time. I mean, are all these old-fashioned way of thinking about pasta still valid, or you are changing the
No, the focus here is on technology, on pasta making technology. And it seems that it works independently from the starting flour, the origin flour. It doesn't mean that the traditional way to make pasta has been to be dismissed. But in my opinion, cannot be used to as a unique support to an eventual claim of reducing the glycemic, the post-prandial glycemic source, because it's not true. It doesn't seem true. So Italian pasta is good for other things that are not just the glycemic response. No, the organoleptic properties, no, the possibility to keep a long time of cooking without disgregating and so on. But still, in this case, we'll see also the other data that we are collecting, for example, the ones on incretins and insulin, or to look if there is maybe some differences in other effects that could be linked to the absorption of starch. But I don't think that we'll see any strong difference on that.
The cooking time
cooking time
influence on these parameters?
Cooking time, we never studied formally cooking time, but there is an old paper published by Tom Walliver, comparing different cooking times and different shapes and different formats of pasta, and it was not the cooking time which was really influencing the glycemic index. It was more the format. no? Short pasta or long pasta, and thickness of the pasta. We also demonstrated that on thickness. So I think that we can use pasta as a paradigm to obtain, for example, a food which is a low GI, which can be inserted in long-term studies, feeding study with volunteers, because it's very easy to substitute with bread, and we don't add any fiber. If we substitute bread, white bread with white pasta. And this can be also, at least in Italy, is a major determinant of the low GI of the population. So the pasta eaters have an average GI which is lower than bread eaters. And we also demonstrate there is an effect on fatty liver, because the slide I showed before this morning, David, the main determinant of the glycemic index of our population was the consumption of pasta, which is something interesting. So it can also be a good food to be used in experimental protocols where you want to reduce the GI long term.